Welcome back to the CFB Sports Show. I'm your host, Braylon Brakefield. With me, my friend, co-host, Cole Lepchitz. Cole, what's up, bro?
What's going on, man? Back up here in Nova, Northern Virginia. Feels good to be back. I had a pretty good visit back home. I feel like I was there forever, even though I was only there for 2 weeks. I feel like I was doing something like every day. But that's the way it's got to be during the holidays. Got to see all the peeps.
Yeah. Holidays kind of suck. You know?
Why you say that?
It's just a lot of moving around.
It is a lot, dude. It's like I need a vacation from like my holiday vacation.
Yeah.
You know?
I wish we could just spread it out more.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Like, like the Christmas with the Cranks. I feel like they were kind of onto something. Going on the cruise during Christmas. I feel like that's kind of a high IQ move. Especially spend Christmas Day with the family and then go on a cruise. I mean, then you're getting the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I'm like
some rest and relaxation.
I'm living like 4 Christmases but squared. Like me and Kaylee both having 4 parents. It's just a lot going on. But
that is a lot.
I only got to do it like twice a year.
That's
true. We can start with the sad stuff. Go and get that out of the way. The Bills safety, Damar Hamlin, of course. Prayers up for him. I just feel like that's something,
sure.
We don't really have to harp on just because I feel like a ton of people have been talking about it the last 24 hours. It's really all I've seen, but I feel like we should at least say something. And, at the end of it, it's a scary situation. At the end of it, guys like Ryan Clark and like Dan Orlovsky, I saw some clips from him today, and those guys crushed it. Like, they handled it about as well as anyone could, especially Ryan Clark. He showed why he's a professional, and, most people that are thrown to the fire like that can't really, kind of like a sink or swim type moment, and he crushed it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Dan Orlovsky hitting the prayer today on the show. Pretty cool. I think it was Laura Rutledge maybe that said it, but talking about how, it's obviously an unfortunate, moment in football history, but kind of seeing the world come together for this one guy's life is pretty awesome to see. I hope he makes it and hopefully can come back. I think any kind of we're waiting on any kind of news. I guess the last we've heard is that he's still in critical condition. This is like one of those freak things, man, that makes sports scary. I think, like they said last night, that this is the first time they've seen the ambulance on the field like that. That in itself is scary. And then, at the time you didn't know what was really going on and watching the game. And after everything unfolded and the teams left the field, that's when you knew, man, it was something serious. So prayers up, good vibes, whatever you want to do for the guy. I mean, they need it.
Yeah, for sure. Then you had people that didn't land the mark very well, like the boy Skip Bayless. And I've seen a ton of people like trying to explain his side of it today and kind of defend him. And it's just like, I get what he was saying, but in the moment, you just have to be able to read the room and like just be a human for a second. Don't be this robot that like you're programmed to only talk about sports. Just like his excuse today was that he doesn't read Twitter. He just tweets. It's like, well, that's a problem. You shouldn't just be firing off tweets. Sense. Yeah, without being able to see everything going on. And a lot of people are saying, well, he goes back and he defends it in the next tweet. Today he says he sent out that tweet after his boss had called him. The boss of Fox, is calling him saying, hey, your tweet is getting a lot of backlash, and he doesn't even know. Like, you shouldn't be on these platforms if you can't work them or, just read it. You can't even read Twitter. like read the tweets coming at him, because there was, I don't know if you scrolled through the mentions on that, there were a lot of blue check marks firing back at him. A lot of big names. Big Perk was one of them. And like Shannon Sharp not coming into work today over it, to where he doesn't even know if he wants to come back and do a show. And that's one of the biggest shows Fox has. And Shannon Sharp's as good as they get too.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. Dude's a bum. I mean, I think he's always kind of been pretty bad. As you know, I mean, just being like a person. I remember when he said he wouldn't have Mike McCarthy as a coach because he was fat. Like, it's like stuff like that, man. Like, what does that have to do with anything? What does, finishing this game, like, why would you even say that in that moment? If you wanted to come on the show and be like, man, I wish they could have found a way to finish the game. I understand it was a tough thing to see for everybody on the field. Like, okay, you say that, and everybody's like, okay, maybe, yeah. Like you have the right to say that the next day, but like right as it's happening, you're saying they should finish this game. Like, this is ridiculous, and you're sitting on your couch in your comfort. Like, not cool. I totally, I see. I don't want to say I would say, like I'm not defending him at all, but I mean I could see what he was thinking. But to put that out in the world is like, what are you doing? Like, you should have some kind of self-awareness to where you're like, yeah, that's not a good thought. That's like an intrusive thought. This isn't something I should act on, kind of deal.
Yeah, I mean, I literally think he's just a robot. And just like his entire life, he's just been trying to do things one way. He just doesn't have that human aspect of it.
Yep.
But other than that, this is the best college football playoff we've ever had. Like, and we still got one game left. Which game do you want to talk about first?
Let's go with the one that I watched in its entirety. The TCU Michigan game. I mean, wow. It was incredible. I mean, I didn't think, I thought that Michigan would be able to kind of lean on TCU throughout the game. It's kind of what you see that Michigan's style of teams do, but they did not. TCU really didn't let them. Michigan kind of had a weird game plan, I thought. Not, a lot of weird situational calls, but I mean, TCU took it and ran with it. So, I mean, it's not like a knock against TCU that Michigan was doing sus things. Like TCU capitalized on all of it. So, I mean, shout out to them for real. Like, it's crazy.
It is, and you look at like, there's really a 21-point swing with 2 pick sixes and then a touchdown overturn that turned into a fumble on the 1-yard line. And then, we have to retire the Philly special. Nobody falls for it anymore. Like, you can't just keep running the same play, same trick play over and over and over. Like, the Eagles did this in the Super Bowl. Every player on the field has seen that ran.
Everybody's seen it.
But, I mean, it was an awesome game. Like, just two teams just throwing haymakers back and forth. Max Duggan is just not the most talented guy on the planet, not the biggest, not the fastest. He's just figuring it out. Garrett Riley is very good, too, as an offensive coordinator. Then you have the wide receiver, Quentin Johnson. He is going to be a stud in the NFL. Like 6'4", runs a 4.40.
Yeah.
He catches every jump ball.
Massive dude.
Yeah, like in the Kansas State game, over half their plays were probably just jump balls to him. And like 90% of the time they were working. There's just nothing you can do about it.
Yep.
And Duggan's just tough, man. Like he's got that grit.
Got that dog in him. Yeah, I mean, he's not, like you said, he's not anything particular. He probably really won't even be, much of a NFL quarterback, back up here and there. He's probably a smart guy, so he can handle a playbook and be a solid backup. But, as far as measurables, he's probably not the most impressive guy you'll see. But that being said, he's got a lot of that Taylor Heineke in him where, he don't care. He don't care about that stuff. Like he's going out there to get a win, and whatever he's got to put his body through to do it, he's going to do it.
Yeah, I saw he was interviewed by Part of My Take, and I didn't get to watch all of it, but I saw some bits and pieces, and I know at one point Big Cat was just like, dude, that was awesome when your team literally had to like pick you up off the ground in the championship game. He was like, dude, I was just completely out of gas. Like I had given everything I could on that last drive. I literally couldn't hardly pick myself up. He's that guy. Like I said to you when we were watching the game together for a minute, he's like a more talented Jake Coker. Like if Jake Coker had a better arm, or maybe a more accurate arm, a little more athletic.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Yeah, I was gonna say Jake Coker's got an absolute missile.
Yeah,
but I mean, he didn't have. I don't really know. I don't really know how to describe what he didn't have. He just didn't have it. But he was a competitor.
for sure. He's not scared to put his head down, get in the mix. And I mean, do you think this changes Harbaugh's situation at all? I know he's been rumored
Yeah, I
with some
think
NFL
so.
jobs.
I think it does. I think I think that the window of opportunity is there for him to make the jump back to the NFL. He carried Michigan kind of back. I mean, 2 straight playoff appearances is nothing to like just brush off. Like that's a major accomplishment. I don't know. I mean, it depends on what he personally is in it for, which is impossible for any of us to call. But I think that it would be a good opportunity for him to make the jump to NFL. And I mean, he really wouldn't. I mean, I don't. I think it's justified. I don't think he would get much backlash. I mean, I don't see. What more could he really do? I mean, he could win one at Michigan, but I just feel like it's tough. You know, you're in the bad side of the Big East. The playoffs are about to just get 10 times harder. Like, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, but I mean, even if he wins one at Michigan, after that, if he was to leave, people would still have something to say about it. Like nobody,
Yeah.
the fan base is never going to be okay with you leaving. So you might as well go. You're getting a better job with the NFL. Like if he was to get offered the Saints job, I think you have to take that.
Got to.
The Saints are one of the best franchises in the NFL. They have one of the best fan bases. They basically stretch the entire Southeast. Like if you're anywhere in the Southeast, you either root for the Saints or the Falcons. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just think you would have to take that, especially if you get in there, which the Saints won't get you a good quarterback, but get in there, maybe get in there next year, try to get Caleb Williams or Drake May or one of those guys. Because I know the Eagles have their first round pick this year, so they're not getting a good quarterback this year. And I don't know. I think if I'm him, I don't know what I would do, but I wouldn't blame him for going to the NFL.
No, not at all. Not at all. And I mean, I still think that Jameis Winston is serviceable for a year until you find somebody, or you can make a deal with somebody to get somebody there. I've seen some like weird rumors about Tom Brady going there. I don't really know why. Something about Sean Payton as well. So I don't know. I just TikTok things, but it was a decent, like account that I saw it from. So I don't know. Maybe he was just stating the rumor, but so that would be weird. But I mean, that also makes it not about Tom Brady, but just how it kind of shows like how much they have going on there for like Harbaugh to go there. So you never know. But like, I mean, Harbaugh is not one to shy away from plucking a good quarterback. I mean, he made it. He had Alex Jones, or not Alex, it was Alex Smith, and was super competitive with him. Had Colin Kaepernick in the Super Bowl. I mean, the dude can coach, and he can build a staff. So definitely something to think about for him. But yeah, I think if there's any time to do it, it's now. I don't see any reasons to not like just to hang on to Michigan, unless that's just what he wants to do. Unless he just wants to hang out at Michigan for the rest of his career, I think he could definitely do that. But I just don't. I think it'd be a good time to move on before you're hated. Move on while you're still loved.
Yeah. And like, could you imagine this scenario? His brother knocks him out. Him and his brother play against each other in the Super Bowl. His brother beats him.
Mm-hmm.
There's rumors that Lamar Jackson's not coming back.
Yep.
Could you imagine if he goes to one of these big jobs and signs Lamar Jackson from his brother and just starts running the same system that his brother's running with him and just gives Lamar the bag and takes care of him?
I mean, it could happen. Like, why not? I want somebody to tell me why not. I mean, that's who I can't remember. I want to say that coordinator that he had with Colin Kaepernick is somewhere. He's still in the league. He's still out there and about. I just can't remember where he's at the moment. I knew it like 5 weeks ago, but Christmas and stuff. I just can't remember. But no, he's still out there. So I mean, imagine they put together a super squad and get all the boys out there. You still got Taysom Hill there, who would be awesome to have with Lamar. I mean, think about the stuff you could do. Just crazy creativity. That would be awesome.
But the other game, the nightcap of Georgia and Ohio State, one of the best games that there has been in the playoff. I mean, Georgia's down 14 with like 10 minutes left, 8 minutes left, down 6 with 1 minute left. Minute 3, I think, is when they got the ball back. And Ohio State still has time to, make a drive at the end and miss a 50-yard field goal, which was, I think we've been like kind of jaded on how hard it is to kick a field goal, because you watch a lot of these guys, they're very good at it. 50 yards is half the field. And, it's almost like you see a guy set up for it, and it's like, well, this should go in. But even worse than that, the guy was 11 for 11 on kicks from 40 to 49 yards. He was 0 for 2 in 50-yard field goals. If they could have got him 1 yard.
Yeah. Well, he just made a 45 before that.
Yeah, a 40. I think it was a 48-yarder.
Yeah.
So, and it looks way worse than what it is, because you think about, like, if you don't have the leg to kick it 50 yards, you're just going to go out there and just kick it with everything you got and just hope it goes that way.
Yeah. He barrel hooked it. It had the distance from what it looked like, but it was a double in the gap. Like,
yeah, it had that hook.
Barrel hook.
Yeah, that was like a lefty softball hit in the left center gap.
Yeah.
It was running from the goalpost.
It is what it is. I didn't get to see the end of the game. I fell asleep. I got up, for all you haters. Oh, how could you not finish the game? What are you, a lightweight? Whatever. No. I was completely sober. I was driving the next day to Virginia. So I don't want to hear no lip. Okay, I had to, ensure the safety of my family and Lizzie, and who's my cat, and we had a safe trip. So you're welcome. But yeah, no, I really hated to turn it off. It was really hard because I knew that Georgia was going to make a comeback. When I turned it off, I think Ohio State was up like 11. So I'm pumped, man. I'm like, I can't sleep. Like, I have to turn it off. I can't fall asleep with it on, or I'll just stay up and watch it. So that was super frustrating for me. But no, Ohio State, I really was happy to finish the year off with a good take. I thought that they had the dudes to do it, and they did it. They just didn't, like the domino just slipped the other way at the end of the game. And, it is what it is, but I felt really good watching Ohio State kind of hang around with them, because according to nerds and like 247 like roster ratings and stuff, like Ohio State had the better roster Um, very underrated because they got blown out by Michigan at home. Rivalry game. I don't really know what to say, but they sat there for a month and got called soft, and they came out and they were not soft. They played very hard. At times, their defense did look pretty gutless, but then there was times where like Georgia couldn't even move the ball. So it was like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? Which kind of made the game even better. Like just added to like the wow factor of the game because that is a instant classic. I would say I would put that one right there with the Georgia Oklahoma Rose Bowl and the Georgia Alabama championship that went into overtime. I would put it up there with those. So, and you don't see that in the first round very much. It's usually a blowout, especially if it's SEC versus anyone else. It's usually a blowout. Doesn't really matter who it is. So, I'm glad that both of those games were exciting. I think it kind of backs up to what we both were talking about before the season about NIL kind of balancing everything out. And I mean, you could see it right there. Everybody thought all year Georgia was just untouchable. And I mean, I think that showed that they were very, they were more, balanced and in line with the rest of the, top whatever you want to put, whatever number you want to put on it, than just being, dominant Georgia.
Yeah, they looked beatable. Like for 3 quarters and 10 minutes, Ryan Day coached a perfect game. And I even said to you, Kirby Smart, now I think Kirby Smart is currently the best coach in college football. Like just the way he dominates the defensive side, like better than any other coach. Like the only other comparison is going to be like Lincoln Riley in the offensive side. But, like he has control of the game. He's blitzing 4, and his schemes are just so good that they're getting to the quarterback every time. Ryan Day brings in, he's not going to run the conventional with a running back there standing next to C.J. Stroud. He's going to get one of his fullbacks or tight ends or whatever position this guy plays, who's 260, and he's just going to park him in front of C.J. Stroud and just say, I know you're going to get past my offensive lineman, but when they get here, I'm going to have a second level of defense to give C.J. a minute to get away and do something else, and it worked. And TCU surely they've seen that and realized you're not going to stop Georgia blitzing 4 with your 5 offensive linemen. You have to have that second line to block and give Duggan time to work. And, yeah, I mean, I said, Kirby coached great. He calls the timeout, which people were a little controversial about on the trick play, the fake punt that worked. And then they ended up going back and saying that he had called the timeout just in time when you watch it in real time. Might have been a second late, but he was running down there before the ball was snapped, trying to get the guy's attention. But, I mean, I just don't even know how you see that. Like, that's an obsessive amount of film that was watched to see maybe it was personnel or something that was changed that was a little different that he noticed. Gets the timeout in. Losing Marvin Harrison kind of flipped the game on its head too. And seeing a lot of people complaining about the targeting call there. And, I mean, it was a defenseless receiver. But also, there was no head-to-head. He led with his shoulder. It looks worse in real time than when it did slow down. But that is kind of textbook targeting, because the receiver's defenseless. But what's he supposed to do? Just let him catch it?
I thought the same thing. It's a tough spot. I think what would make it not targeting is going for the ball, because I feel like he definitely could have. Would be like your textbook right answer, but I mean, it's a lobbed ball, whatever. The guy's running at you. It would be a heck of a play. But I feel like, personally, I just feel like it has to be called there. Like, I feel like it's just too blatant of a target. I mean, he's launching his body into the upper half or above. I always think about it if it's like above your, I don't know, like your nipples maybe. Like, it should be targeting. Like, if you're launching your upper body, shoulder, whatever, head, into the other person like that, I feel like that's where it gets unsafe. And call me soft, but I mean, if that's the rule, then I would say let's play by it. But whatever. I mean, that's up that makes sports great is these unknown variables of how the refs or the umpires call the game, and it's just part of it. That's just kind of the stuff you can control, and I feel like Ohio State did a good job handling it. It's rough losing your tight end and your best receiver in the same game. I feel like that happens with Georgia like all the time, but yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, they've played all year without, Jackson Smith and Jigba supposed to be the number one receiver taken in the draft, and he just kind of no-shows them, and, whatever his deal is.
Imagine if he plays.
And didn't you think about Georgia on the same side, too, though? They lost Nolan Smith, a couple weeks ago. That was, I think it was right before the Tennessee game. He was their best player on defense, and that defense is still pretty good.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me, too, to think about the Georgia defense, because I don't think it's one of those, like, legendary defenses, but I think compared to the rest of the country, I think it's, in that top 1% of defenses, probably, like, top 3, and they could just give up, like, 50 points.
Yeah.
Like, that's how good Ohio State, that's how prepared Ohio State was. That's how good C.J. Stroud, Marvin Harrison Jr. are. Because a lot of these, like, mock drafts have the Ringo kid go and being the first cornerback taken, being, like, top 10 pick. He got exposed by Marvin Harrison.
Exposed.
Like,
well, C.J. Stroud's a baller, first and foremost. I don't know if he just looks lackadaisical in the regular season, but I feel like every time I watch him, he plays like an absolute pimp daddy.
yeah. And, we'll get to the Alabama game here in a minute, but to me, Bryce Young made plays to where it was like, okay, well, here's your number one pick. Texans, there's nothing for you to think about. This is the guy. Some of the throws he made was extremely impressive. And then C.J. Stroud comes right behind him. He's like, maybe I'm the guy.
Up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was awesome. Like, I think both of those guys, really, if the Texans, how do you pick between those two?
I mean, it's like, to me, I mean, I would go with the size, just because, I mean, it's kind of proven as a more sustainable value, I feel like. It's not always the case, but, I mean, in a big, rough, tough league, I would take the bigger guy if you think of him as equal. But, I mean, if you think Bryce Young is that dude, then I don't think it's a miss. You know what I mean? It's just more of a risk, I would say. But, I feel like C.J. Stroud has the arm talent that could flip your program or your franchise in 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, I would personally take C.J. Stroud too, but there is no gap there. Like, it would just be preference, like you said. Like, if you want the slimy guy that Bryce Young is, to where you can't tackle him in the backfield, that's going to help you a lot too. Even though I don't think that'll work as well in the NFL, just because the guys blitzing you there are faster than you and bigger than you and stronger than you. But still, his arm talent is up there too. I just think, Stroud will look better once the pro day rolls around. I think Stroud will be that guy that's airing it out, and we'll see all the clips of him throwing it, 70 yards in there and all that stuff. So I figure he'll end up going 1. But if Young goes 1, I'm not going to debate it or anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think either one is, because I mean, I feel like playing in the SEC, like you're bound to get exposed at some point, and I feel like he never really was just like held mute. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like he was just never. I feel like it was almost his own personnel sometimes. Like, I'm sure that the film may show more, but I feel like it was a problem all year. We couldn't get guys open. And he was still able to drop it in the bucket at times where you're just like, what? So I don't know, but yeah, I mean, I think either one is fine. Trying to think what else I saw in that game, that Ohio State game.
Stetson Bennett is a stud.
Nerd. What happened was he thought he was a gunslinger again, and he got brought down to earth, like on live TV. Like Kirby walked out to him and was like, "Nah, man, just remember who you are. All right, play in the system." But no, I mean, all jokes aside, he's a good quarterback for college. I mean, he does everything right. I don't know, man. I mean, he's a winner. I don't know. I really hate talking good about him, but I gotta respect him. He's definitely earned it. I hate him more than anything, but he's a good guy. I mean, he's a little cocky at times, but for the most part, he's a good guy, and he does things the right way. I wish he would drop less mics. I think that is total cringe, but if you're doing your thing, do your thing, I guess.
Yeah, in all honesty, he should have been like the story of the year, like mainly last year, but even this year, like the guy was, for some reason, he's hated too. And like you said, he's a little cringe, but I don't think he does anything that's like over the top to make him like hated. But, maybe it's because he's the quarterback of the best team in the country, back to back, fixing to be back to back champs. And, I don't know, man, but like he's a walk on, he walks on at Georgia. Basically his role, the only thing he did all year was he was Baker Mayfield on the practice squad before Georgia played Oklahoma that year in the playoffs. And then he leaves Georgia, goes to a small JUCO, comes back, and basically is just like, going to be a backup. They're looking for a quarterback.
Fields.
Yeah.
Right.
Behind Justin Fields. And then, Fields leaves, and then they brought in somebody else.
I thought he won the spot, and then they brought in. He beat out Fields in 2020, and then they brought in JT Daniels, and he beat him out too.
I thought Fields was already at Ohio State.
Or was it Fields and Fromm?
Fields and Fromm is who overlapped.
There was somebody he beat out in 2020. Maybe it was JT Daniels then too. Maybe he beat him out 2 years in a row. But 2020 Stetson Bennett started, and I remember thinking like, because we went to the game that they played in Tuscaloosa, and I remember like, this is their guy? Like, this is the dude? He's like, I feel like I could beat him up. You know what I mean? Like, I'm standing up in the top deck, like, this guy's like a shrimp. And, of course we beat him. And then the next year he's back, and he beats out JT Daniels, who's, USC transfer. You're like, man, this dude's about to be good. And then he doesn't even play, except when Stetson's hurt for that little bit. And carries him to a national championship. And then he's back again. And then rumors have it that he's coming back again. So for his senior citizen year.
That'd be awesome. What if he won it 3 times?
What? If he actually came back?
Yeah.
And they did it again?
He won the Natty 3 times?
I mean, that would be crazy. I mean, I feel like, though, it's even more. I hate to keep hating on him, but like, there's been comparisons to AJ McCarron, which, okay.
No, that's not a crazy comparison.
Those are somewhat fair.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, okay, AJ McCarron was pretty hated by other teams. Like, we loved him. I think AJ McCarron's more cooler, though, like, just in my opinion. I mean, just look at his wife. I mean, you don't get that being a nerd, you know what I'm saying?
Like, don't he have like a big eagle tattooed on his chest or something? Yeah,
I mean, he's got some tats, he's probably low key weird, but on the surface he's cool. So, it is what it is. But no, I think that's a somewhat fair comparison. But I do think that, I mean, AJ kind of was pretty good, and then also had the dudes with him But I feel like, maybe a half step down, you got Stetson Bennett. Which, have you seen Stetson Bennett be a field goal, like a holder? He's top notch. He's about as good as it gets. So he might lock down an NFL job just because he's like the best of the best at holding.
And he's a guy, like, he's not a gunslinger. He's just going to go out there and just take care of the ball. Like, to me, he's going to be the perfect backup third-string quarterback in the league. And he'll probably end up making good money doing that. Like you said, holding, knowing the playbook, and just not screwing up.
Yeah, I mean, he'll be a good dude to have in the locker room. Like, he's smart. He's not an idiot. He wears, 8 million polo vests at one time. I mean, he's what you want as a backup quarterback.
Yeah. His
I was
press
pretty
conference.
disappointed, man. When he went to the Heisman thing, there was a picture of him, and he was wearing like 8 different shirts all at one time. And I screenshotted him and tweeted it, and I said, from Family Guy, they're like, if you say one more cool thing, you're in, like in the cool kids. They were talking to Stewie, which is even hilariouser because it's a short guy with a big head. And he goes, I wear long sleeve shirts under short sleeve shirts under long sleeve shirts. 0 likes, 0 retweets. I'm like, okay, nobody gets it. That's hilarious. Let's move along. You know what I mean? But I thought that was comedy gold.
I saw it. I didn't get the joke.
Yeah, you got to be just a real hardcore Family Guy kind of guy to get
A real
But I thought there'd be one,
head.
but not one. None of them.
So what do you think?
Yes.
Natty talks. What do you think? Georgia's favored by 13.5 last I saw.
Yeah, man, I think it's Georgia to cover. I think it's really close. So about the end of the third, big turnover. Georgia takes control, gets a stop, scores again, and then that's it.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't, I think when you pay attention, like betting stuff, you just kind of see games differently. And it's like Ohio State played the perfect game against Georgia and still lost. And to me, I think talent-wise, Ohio State's better than Michigan and TCU. I think them losing to Michigan was kind of just a fluke, like it just happened. And, I mean, I think this is the perfect spot to take Georgia again. Even though I probably won't, by game time, I'll talk myself into TCU. But if TCU can follow what Ohio State did, they laid the game plan out, how to slow their defense down and give your quarterback time to work. And Ringo ain't going to be able to keep up with Johnson. And, if their defense is not very good. If it just does enough, like their defense was unbelievable within the 5-yard line against Michigan.
Yeah.
It was like every time Michigan had to settle for field goals or a turnover. If they could just replicate that, they're going to give Duggan a chance, and maybe this is just the year of Duggan. Who knows?
I mean, I would love it. I would love it. I think they have the offensive play caller to get it done. I think they can have a perfect game plan. It's just, can they execute it? Because Kirby's going to do – he's going to try his darnest to make you not execute it. He's going to know what your game plan is, and he's going to try to exploit it. It's just if they can execute as well. Because, they didn't against Ohio State. They just straight up could not compete on the defensive side. But then again, you're going to have Kirby Smart and Will Muschamp yelling at you for a week straight about how terrible you are. And I think coming off of that game, that's not a defense I'm going to want to see on the other side. But TCU's not going to shy away. So that's why I think it'll be close. But I think at the end of the day, Georgia's just going to keep leaning on them until it hurts.
Yeah, I think TCU is like the obvious play. That's why I think you have to just plug your nose and take Georgia by 2 tutties.
See, I mean, yeah, because I think it'll be like 17, maybe even 21. I think there's going to be like some late scores, like a turnover late score kind of deal where you're like, well, the game was closer than what the score portrays.
Did you see the Mississippi State bad beat?
Yeah,
Mississippi
that
State favored by 3, and the
unreal.
3.5. The other team was down by 3. So the other team was covering. They did the whole backyard crap, throwing the ball around. They were on Mississippi State's side too. Like they weren't in their own side, and the Mississippi State guy grabs it and runs it back like 60 yards for a touchdown to cover the minus 3.5.
And then
What else?
that was great. Tulane beating USC. I feel like that's extremely notable just because Tulane went like 2-10 last year. I'm not even sure what changed. They still got the same quarterback as far as I know.
Low key, some of the best uniforms in the country.
High key. I mean, their colors are great. The green with the light blue and white.
And they've got like 8 different combos that they go to. They have like 4 or 5 different tops and bottoms.
They might be the mid-major everything school. They're really good at baseball. They beat Mississippi State a couple years ago. They're really good at football now, this year, we'll say. Definitely trending upwards. I mean, you win the Cotton Bowl as a mid-major in the American, like you're going to be good for a couple years.
Yeah.
And you're in New Orleans. And they just beat Memphis in basketball. And I think they're usually pretty solid in the American. So they might be the mid-major version of an everything school.
I'll let you talk about Alabama's bowl game. Figured you'd have something to say about that. How great they look.
Yeah, man. We looked pretty good. Deuce got us early. And then we just kind of took control, I guess. Jermaine, I feel like we were doing things with Jermaine Burton that we should have been doing all year. You watch film of him at Georgia. They're giving him one-on-one jump balls, and he's running back shoulder fades and stuff. And we just never really gave him that chance. When we were playing lesser opponents, we kind of did things to get him open, and he could do it. I don't really know what the difference is because, he's proved that he can do it in the same conference, like at Georgia. So, that was it was good to see, but it was also frustrating. Kind of a curtain call for Bryce and Will Anderson. And, Jahmyr Gibbs was only there for a year, but he's gone. Jordan Battle, DeMarco Helms, Brian Branch. A lot of good players, that are going on to the NFL, and I wish them luck. And Eli Ricks announced he's going to the NFL. Thanks for kind of really nothing. Your brother came, so maybe he'll be better. Yeah, man. I said this the other day, and Braylon got me, and it was totally valid. But I am glad we came out and played because there's been years where we play the Sugar Bowl and we lay an egg, like we don't want to be there. So, thanks for showing up. And I will wear that one because I did say that about Auburn. But it's valid. It's a valid argument.
Yeah, I just hate bowl games. I don't think bowl games matter at all. Like that doesn't.
Yep.
Alabama could have won 100-0, and that wouldn't have changed how I felt about them. Kansas State could have won 100-0. That wouldn't have changed the way I felt about either team. Like they're bowl games. Like if you're not playing for the national championship, nothing else, none of that really matters.
Yeah.
And but my big problem with it is I think I saw this a lot because of where I am, and there's just a lot of stupid people around. That for once, I feel like the committee nailed it. I feel like for once we had the best first round of the college football playoff that we've ever had, and you couldn't even enjoy it because of people on Facebook saying Alabama should be playing for the national title now. And I'm like, how do you figure? Because you beat Kansas State in a bowl game that doesn't matter. Kansas State and TCU, that's a different scenario to where they're in the same conference. It's the same thing to where Kansas State could probably go beat LSU right now. LSU beat Alabama. Like, these same conference games are different. You can throw everything out the window when that happens because these teams know each other like the back of their hand. And, Kansas State played a perfect game against TCU. Also, like I said earlier, like when you know about betting games, like TCU gets beat in their last game, that should have been a guaranteed bet on TCU spot. Kansas State looked better than they have all year against TCU. That should be a guaranteed bet against Kansas State in their next game spot. Which is the reason that I said I'll probably end up talking myself into betting Georgia, because TCU looked great. Like, finally people are starting to give TCU their flowers. Like, maybe they can hang. The Big 12 was 0-4, or they were 1-4 in the playoffs before TCU, and then TCU wins their first shot at it.
Yep.
And now they're going to finally start getting a little respect, which they're really not with a 13.5-point line, but maybe that's still showing them respect. Maybe that line should have been like 17.5, like you said, maybe closer to 17 or 21. So it didn't shock me that Alabama beat Kansas State by 40. It didn't shock me that Bryce Young looked amazing against them. But that doesn't translate to Alabama beating TCU. That doesn't translate to Alabama beating Michigan because TCU beat Michigan and Kansas State beat TCU. Like, you just can't play that game.
Yeah. No, I think it is notable that that was Kansas State's second time playing TCU in the season, which we all know what kind of difficulty that adds. And TCU struggled with Kansas State in the first time they played them. So, it was just, I guess, a bad matchup the whole year. So, it is frustrating as an Alabama fan. You thump Kansas State, and you're like, man, this team beat TCU. But, I feel like that's natural. I feel like it's natural to feel like that. But to go out and say things, the day of, like, I don't know. I'd probably just keep it to yourself kind of deal. You know what I mean? You don't want to embarrass yourself. Because it's like, that's like, somebody getting, mad about not being, like the final two, in like the election process. You know what I mean? It's like, well, it just didn't happen for you. It's over now. Like, let's move on. Let's focus on 2024. You know what I mean? Like, it's time to move on. I wish we could have made it. I wish we would have beaten Tennessee or LSU, and we're in. Like, it's that easy. I don't really have, regrets or anything like that. Like, I still think Alabama had the squad to do it. We just didn't do it. Like, I still think that Alabama could have had a shot at winning a national championship. But you got to win. You got to win big games. And two of our biggest rivals hadn't beaten us in 10 years in their own house, and they did it both at the same time. So, it is, it is what it is. If that's what it takes to keep us out of the playoff, then, it's almost like you kind of have to just look at yourself and smile. Like, okay. Like, all right, that's fine.
Yeah,
we can live with it.
The committee, it isn't like the committee is dying to get Alabama in the playoffs. They're dying to get Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, like Clemson. Those teams have to play their way out of the playoff, to whereas another team like TCU had to do. They went undefeated in a Power 5 conference, lost their conference championship game on the last play. It was on a 2-point conversion, wasn't it? Or overtime?
Yeah.
And
overtime.
And then Bama loses twice in the regular season, don't even play for the conference championship, and there was still a debate about Alabama getting in over them. Like, I don't feel bad for Alabama fans when it comes to the playoff, because those four, when the preseason rankings for next year come out, it's going to be Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, or Clemson. Like, you're already there. So that's why it's a little frustrating. Every time. Yeah. To whereas those other schools, like I said before, if TCU has Oklahoma's logo on, they're in no question. Because it was TCU, they've got 12,000 students. They did everything they could to make an argument to keep them out and to put Alabama in. And now, TCU showed they can hang. Don't really matter how big your school is or how big your stadium is. They can hang with anybody.
Yeah, that's a good point. I wish I could say that we'll be there next week or next year. I don't know because we currently don't have a quarterback that's proven anything. So that's always nerve-wracking to go into a season with. One thing I do want to say about people who maybe should have deserved another look at it is Tennessee with Joe Milton. Joe Milton is probably your next dude in the NFL. I don't know. Hopefully he pans out. Like, that dude is massive. 1, 2, has an absolute rifle on his arm. I said Tennessee doesn't have Hendon Hooker. They should be automatically disqualified from any kind of talks. And that was probably the worst take of the year, or like most under. I had a bunch of bad takes last year, but like that one was because like Joe Milton is that dude. Like I would like watching them play in the Orange Bowl. I'm like, oof.
Yeah, they're still tough.
Tennessee fans should be mad, but like not.
But then they lost twice.
I want to say that Tennessee. Yeah, I mean they also lost twice. You know what I mean? Like, they beat Bama. I could understand an argument now to be over Bama. Whatever. It's over. You're not. So LOL. But I think Joe Milton is that guy. So it's like, but I don't think like Tennessee fans knew that he was that guy. I don't want to hear that because nobody really did. Even Jim Harbaugh didn't really know. That's why he transferred. So how do you let a guy like that walk though? Let's be real.
I don't think he's that
dude's
good.
A specimen.
Like, I think he's a freak of nature.
You don't think he's that good?
I think he's a freak of nature, like freakishly talented. I would have to see him do it like consistently, almost like a Ryan Mallett is the vibes I get. A more athletic Ryan Mallett. Like, he can absolutely throw the tits off the ball, but you have to be able to do that for 15 weeks in a row in college football for it even matter.
Yeah, that's true. Well, not necessarily. You could be Will Levis, but I don't know. I'm sure he'll go to the Jets or something.
He'd fit right in.
I don't know. Yeah, it would be on brand. But I'm trying to think if there was anything else from yesterday that I saw.
Got basketball. I think both of our teams look above average. I think Alabama's look really good so far. The Miller kid is special.
Yeah.
Auburn is just kind of missing that go-to score that we had with Jabari last year, but honestly, I don't think that really hurts you, just because sometimes it's those teams that can spread around 4 or 5 guys getting 12, 15 points. I think that's when Auburn will kind of dominate, and they got John I and Wendell, who can both go get you a bucket whenever. And if Wendell's on, he's unguardable.
Yeah, it's tough to guard him. I don't think Alabama's really good this year. But as far as Auburn goes, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to have to work more as a team. That's kind of where Alabama's been the past couple years, and I've still been very happy with our teams for the most part. We turn the ball over a bunch, but we play as a team, and that makes you tough to beat, especially at home. So, I don't think it's like a disappointment. You want to have like a lottery pick every year. It's just it doesn't necessarily work like that for schools like Auburn and Alabama. It's possible, but at the moment, it's pretty tough to do. So,
I think Kentucky isn't as good as we thought they were going to be.
Yeah. Tennessee looks pretty good. from the little bit I saw earlier. I hadn't really watched them a ton. I've really only watched Alabama play, and I've watched UConn play a bunch just because they're like scary to watch. It's like, how are these dudes that big? Which they did lose one, but after I watched them play Alabama, I was like, okay, we might need to watch them. They might be really good.
They're big. Them and Purdue are both
huge,
big.
buddy. I thought Alabama was big, and then they played UConn, and we couldn't score. They're so big. I was like, yeah, I don't think we got it. So, I don't know. I think I watched North Carolina play the other day. They look kind of like they're getting back on their flow. Like they might, come back and be a sleeper if you're into betting. I feel like they might be undervalued. I haven't really paid attention to their lines, but I'm sure they'll be undervalued by Vegas until they get caught up, just because they started so bad. But yeah, man, that's really all I got. I'm trying to think if there's anything in the baseball news. I don't think so. I do know that the Capitals beat the Rangers 4-0. I just want to throw that out there. It's worth mentioning.
Yeah, we could also, both of our hockey teams are slightly above average as well.
It's a good feeling because we started terrible. Oh, I got something else. Two things, actually. Benching Taylor Heineke for Carson Wentz is the biggest mistake ever.
Oof.
Carson Wentz just comes out and has like 3 turnovers or something, and it's just awful against the Browns, who's also equally bad. And that was we had a chance. If we win, we're in the playoffs, I believe, or we take it to next week where we also have a chance to make the playoffs. But now we're just fully eliminated. And then we came out with have you seen the new mascot for the Commanders?
No.
Hold on, let me get a quick search.
Is it a big W?
It's Major something. He's a pig. I'll give you that much.
Oh Lord.
Commanders mascot. There we go.
We did have Correa sign
Major Tutty.
Major Tutty.
Major Tutty. Huh? We're about to get a screen share on this. I got to show the fans this one. It's bad, buddy. It's rough.
Being the Commanders is already pretty rough.
Where's that shit? Just brutal. It's honestly
oh my gosh.
It's so bad, it's hilarious that I'm like almost okay with it.
Why'd they have to give him that gut and the love handles?
See, I don't know.
Ugh. That's horrible.
That's a little better, but I don't know.
Lawsuit. See if you can pull up Brett Bielema's wife again.
Oh man, I think HR might get on to us. I don't know. That's rough. But yeah, that's all I got. If you want to win, you let 4 spin. That's all I got to say.
It's that simple. And what's his face for the 49ers showing the same thing. He's unbelievable.
Oh my gosh. Him and Jarrett Stidham went for a shootout.
Shout out Jarrett Stidham too.
Yeah, I remember he came in and played good.
I remember saying Jarrett Stidham will get drafted. He will be a decent backup just because of how big he is, how good his arm is, and I was made fun of. And for one game, 3 years later, he proved me right.
Did he not play good with the Patriots at one time?
He just didn't ever really get consecutive starts.
Yeah. Well, he will next week. And I think he's fine. I mean, if you've been in Josh McDaniel's system, I think you're going to be fine. I mean, he's had him for 4 years now. So,
Yeah.
or however long Stetson Bennett's been in the league, so maybe like 10.
I'm starting to think Josh McDaniels stinks too.
I don't know. I'm not sure what it is. Because
I think that's
I know
what they're
he's
doing with
good as
Derek
a
Carr.
coordinator.
Yeah, I think that's why I think they're going to get rid of Derek Carr. That way, when they bring in a new head coach next year, he can go get his guy. And I guarantee it, the Colts is who trades for Derek Carr next year. I'd bet every dollar I have on it.
It just makes too much sense. It just makes too much sense. So, do you think they're going to fire McDaniels?
I think so. It's just weird the way that the quarterback situation is, where he just kind of just steps away, and it just feels weird. It feels like they're getting rid of Carr and they're going to get rid of McDaniels, if I had to guess.
They just hired him, though. That's the only. I feel like he hadn't been that bad to where you find
I don't know. That team's pretty loaded. Well, I'm not going to say loaded, but that's an above-average roster.
Yeah, I think
they're
Derek
getting below
Carr
average.
might have been the weak link. I mean, if you get rid of Derek Carr, like you bring in, I don't know who you bring in. You bring in somebody, and I feel like McDaniels could make anybody like an average quarterback slightly above average. You know what I mean? And with a good roster, you can make them really good.
Yeah, I think they have a good roster though.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think Derek Carr's the guy. I mean, he's been there too long.
Okay.
Like they need a fresh start at quarterback.
It's possible too.
If you do what you always done, you get what you always got.
That's facts.
Ain't no way around it. But that's all I got, man. Let's get out of here.
Love you guys.